She wakes up on the floor of a locked room. Her fingernails are torn, like she's been scratching at the walls for hours. There's no window, no sound, just one word, smeared in blood across the door: liar. And the worst part? She doesn't remember why she's here. The humming was back. It started low, like the buzz of a dying light bulb, somewhere behind the drywall. Julia Sinclair pressed her ear to the cold plaster of her bedroom wall and listened. It wasn't electricity. It wasn't plumbing. It was something else. Something deeper. Something that seemed to breathe. She was 33 years old, a middle school art teacher in Asheville, North Carolina, and lately, her world had begun to fragment. She couldn't pinpoint when it started. Maybe after her divorce. Maybe after the school lockdown. Maybe after her last therapy session, the one where Dr. LeBrun leaned in too close and whispered something she couldn't quite remember. Lately, every night at 3:17 a.m., the humming began. And so did the scratching. At first, she thought it was a rat. Then maybe her own imagination. But she began to document it. Little notepads filled with timestamps, drawings of scratch marks, audio recordings that picked up nothing. No sound. But she heard it. Felt it under her skin. Her students noticed. "You look tired, Miss Sinclair," one girl said, and Julia smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd begun to wear gloves to cover the crescent-shaped cuts in her palms where she dug her nails and to stay grounded. By week 2, she stopped sleeping entirely. Something was wrong with the walls. They pulsed. They breathed. She would wake up with her bed moved 3 inches to the left. Her closet door open. The lights flickering in response to thoughts she hadn't spoken aloud. On the 14th night, the humming stopped. That scared her more than anything. The silence was suffocating. The kind of silence that filled her skull with static. She walked through the house like she was underwater, each room unfamiliar, the photos in her hallway turned to face the wall. Who did that? She stood in the living room, staring at the frames. She turned one around. Her face was scratched out. In every photo. Her wedding. Her childhood birthday. That one beach trip she hated. All of them, gouged out with something sharp. All except one. A picture of her mother. Not smiling. Not frowning. Just watching. Julia tried to call her. The phone rang once. Then a voice answered, not her mother's. "You need to stop digging," it said. Click. That night, she locked every door, every window. She placed salt along the sills. She didn't believe in that kind of thing, but it felt like a barrier. Like she was warding off something. Not outside. Inside. When she went to bed, the room was cold. Her breath fogged the air. And then she saw it. On the mirror above her dresser, scrawled backward in something thick and red. "You wanted this." She ran. To the front door. Deadbolt from the inside. To the back door. Boarded shut. To the windows. They weren't windows anymore. Just flat drywall. Seamless. Like they'd never existed. She screamed until her voice broke. And somewhere, deep inside the walls, the humming returned. Low. Rhythmic. Hungry. The next morning, sunlight didn't come. There was no sky, just the soft, white glow of ceiling fixtures that hadn't worked in years. Julia sat on the floor of her bedroom, knees pulled to her chest, the mirror still smeared with that message: "You wanted this." She tried to scrub it off. It wouldn't budge. The substance looked like blood, but felt like wax. Her hands trembled as she scraped at it with a credit card, until the plastic snapped in two. That's when she noticed it. Beneath the smear, under the surface of the mirror, a faint reflection shimmered. But it wasn't hers. It was a man, standing behind her. She turned, heart thudding so hard she thought it might burst from her ribs. But the room was empty. She rushed back to the mirror. Gone. Only her own terrified reflection now, pale, bloodshot, trembling. She hadn't eaten in nearly 2 days. Her fridge held nothing but a half-empty bottle of white wine and a yogurt long past its expiration date. The power shouldn't have even been on, yet the lights hummed as if mocking her. She stumbled to the hallway, where the pictures had all been turned back around. She hadn't touched them. Each photo now featured the man she saw in the mirror, tall, bald, dressed in a charcoal suit. Always in the background. Behind her at a picnic table. At her wedding. Even at her high school graduation. A presence she never noticed before. A ghost in her memories. She tore the photos down, ripping glass and frame to splinters. Her phone was gone. She ran to her laptop, still on her desk. No internet. No saved files. Only one folder now, labeled in all caps, "Remember." She clicked it open. There was a single video. A home recording. She clicked play. The screen flickered to static, then focused. It was her, sitting at a table, clearly distraught. Eyes swollen, hair matted. She rocked slightly, whispering something again and again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Then she looked up at the camera. Her expression changed, became cold. Julia, she said, but the voice was not hers. It was male. Deep. Calm. You asked for this. You paid for it. You signed everything. She slammed the laptop shut, chest heaving. None of it made sense. The walls vibrated again. She turned to run and smacked into something solid. A man stood in her hallway. Tall. Bald. Charcoal suit. She screamed, a raw, guttural sound, and he didn't move. Just looked at her with the blankness of a wall. Then he opened his mouth, and the humming poured out. She backed into her room, slamming the door. Locked it. Barricaded it. Curled into the closet with a flashlight, gripping a pair of scissors like a knife. Hours passed. The humming stopped. When she finally dared to emerge, the hallway was empty. But her door, the one she'd locked, was open. And carved into the wood, just beneath the knob, was a single word. Liar. Julia didn't sleep. By dawn, if it was dawn, she had packed a single bag. Clothes, her dead phone, the scissors, the picture of her mother. The man hadn't returned. Or maybe he had, and she'd lost time again. She couldn't be sure. Her hands were filthy. Her fingernails caked with what looked like drywall powder. She didn't remember digging. She just needed to get out. The front door was unlocked now. Open, even, as if inviting her to leave. She stepped into the yard, expecting light, traffic, morning birdsong. There was nothing. Just fog. Thick and gray, clinging to the neighborhood like gauze. Her neighbors' houses were silhouettes, no movement, no lights. She passed them like a ghost walking through a dream, waiting for someone to shout, to stop her, to see her. No one did. When she reached the end of the block, her car was parked where she left it. She hadn't driven it in over a week. The keys were still in her pocket. She got in and started the engine. It roared to life. For the first time in days, she felt the faintest glimmer of relief. The world hadn't ended. She wasn't insane. She was out. She drove. Didn't know where she was going until she was halfway there. Her mother's house. It was instinct. Muscle memory. A buried need. Her mother lived in Waynesville, about 45 minutes outside Asheville. The drive felt longer today. Time seemed to stretch and tangle. At one point, Julia passed the same gas station 3 times in a row. She checked the GPS. No signal. Just static and a message. Recalculating. When she finally pulled into the driveway, her mother's porch light was on. That same yellow bulb that had burned since Julia was a child. She knocked once. Twice. The door opened. Her mother stood there, thinner than Julia remembered. Pale. As if she hadn't been outside in years. Julia, she said softly, as if waking from a dream. I told you not to come back. What? But her mother didn't answer. Just stepped aside and let her in. The house smelled like cedar and old ashtrays. Like it always had. Every photo still hung on the walls, untouched. Julia looked at herself in one. She hadn't been scratched out here. She was whole. Smiling. I need to talk to you, she said. Something's happening to me. I think someone's watching me. Or following me. This man, he was in all my pictures. Her mother stiffened. I told them not to use you. What? Her mother closed her eyes. I begged them. I told them you weren't strong enough. That you didn't remember. That it would come back too fast. Who? What are you talking about? Her mother sat down in the chair by the window. Her hands trembled as she picked up an old cigarette, unlit. You don't know where you were last year, do you? I was in Asheville. I teach. You know that. Her mother looked at her with pity. Julia. No, baby. You disappeared for 11 months. Julia blinked. That couldn't be true. I talked to you. No. You sent postcards. Emails. None of them sounded like you. Julia backed away, heart pounding. She didn't remember any of that. She opened her mouth to argue, and that's when the lights flickered. The humming returned. Not outside. Inside the house. Her mother stood quickly. You have to go. If they followed you here, they'll take us both. Who? But her mother was already moving toward the door. Go, Julia. Please. Before you remember everything. Julia didn't remember driving back. 1 minute, she was standing in her mother's doorway, the humming thick in her ears. The next, she was home, sitting on her couch. Mud caked on her shoes. Blood, dry and rust-colored, smeared across her forearm. She stared at it, then down at her hands. They were clean. Her body was playing tricks. Or her mind was. She didn't know which was worse. The living room looked wrong. Subtle changes. The clock on the wall was upside down. Her books were sorted by color, not title. The TV played static, though it wasn't plugged in. She stood, slow and cautious, and walked to the kitchen. The humming stopped the moment she entered. It was freezing. She reached for the light switch, nothing. But the fridge buzzed softly, a single yellow post-it stuck to its door. Check the basement. She hadn't been down there in years. The stairs creaked like they were in pain. Each step down felt heavier, like the air was thickening, pressing against her chest. The overhead bulb flickered violently, then steadied. She almost turned back. But then she saw the photographs. Hundreds of them, taped to the walls, spread across the concrete floor, hung from string like laundry. All of her. Sleeping, crying, showering. Photos from inside her own house, from angles she couldn't explain. From above. And in every frame, the man in the suit stood somewhere behind her. Unblinking. She dropped to her knees, breath caught in her throat. In the corner of the room was a small TV. A dusty, boxy thing. Its screen played something on a loop, a security camera feed from above her bed. She watched herself sit up in the middle of the night. Watched her walk to the mirror. Watched her smear "You wanted this" with something dark and thick. She did it. She did it. No, she whispered. The figure on the screen turned, not toward the camera, but as if she could see her through it. Julia gasped, fell back, then noticed something else in the feed. A door. Behind her bed. She looked up, back at the photos. In some of them, that door was there. In others, it was just wall. She ran upstairs. Into her bedroom. No door. Just blank drywall. But something about it pulsed. Like a heartbeat. She picked up a chair and smashed it against the wall. Once. Twice. On the third hit, the drywall cracked. Behind it, just faintly, was wood. A door. She clawed at the edges, ripped chunks of plaster with her bare hands, splinters slicing her palms open. Finally, it revealed itself. Old. Heavy. No handle. A keyhole. She stepped back, breath shallow. And then she saw the key on her dresser. Plain. Rusted. Sitting as if it had always been there. She picked it up with trembling fingers. As she brought it to the lock, she heard something shift behind the door. Like footsteps. Close. Waiting. The key slid in like it had lived there forever. The lock gave with a click that echoed louder than it should have. As if it wasn't unlocking a room, but something else. Something older. Something waiting. Julia hesitated, her hand on the knobless slab of wood. Then she pushed. The door didn't open into her house. It opened into a hallway. White. Sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in perfect, measured intervals. The air smelled like antiseptic. Like bleach and sorrow. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. No sound. No latch. Just gone. She turned, ready to scream, to pound her fist on the wall, but the wall was blank now. Seamless. No way back. She walked. Down the long hallway lined with identical doors. Each marked only with a number. Each locked. Silence pressed against her like pressure at the bottom of the ocean. At the far end, one open door. Room 117. She entered. It was a padded cell. White walls. Soft corners. A cot bolted to the floor. And on the cot sat herself. Hair shaved close. Dressed in a hospital gown. Thin. Eyes sunken. Skin the color of paper. Julia, the other her, said, smiling faintly. You're late. She staggered back, the floor tilting under her. What is this? She breathed. Who are you? I'm you. The real one. No. She turned to leave, but the door was gone now. Just blank wall again. You paid them to erase it, the other Julia said gently. After what happened. You begged them. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, the woman said. You just locked it away. Julia shook her head, tears starting to slide down her face. I'm losing my mind. No. You're finding it. She stepped closer. You were here for 11 months. Voluntary admission. After what you did. After what you saw. You begged them to make you forget. To build a life for you, one without guilt. Without memory. They warned you the cracks would come. That reality would start to unravel. No. You went back too soon. You thought you were healed. The hum began again, low and vibrating, coming from the walls, the floor, her own chest. But the truth doesn't stay buried, the woman said. Not when blood is involved. Julia sank to the ground, her mind spinning, vision tunneling. What did I do? She whispered. What did I forget? The other Julia only tilted her head. You'll remember soon. And then she turned to the wall and pressed her palm against it. A new door opened. A heavy one. Steel. Industrial. Behind it, darkness. Inside the darkness, a shape moved. Something that breathed like a man but didn't feel human at all. And before Julia could scream, the lights in the hallway all shut off, one by one, until only the darkness remained. Darkness. The kind that doesn't just blind, it consumes. It crept into her lungs, her bones, like drowning in ink. Julia couldn't move. She wasn't sure if her limbs wouldn't respond or if they were simply gone. Then, light. A single flickering overhead bulb. Cold white. Buzzing like a dying bee. She was strapped to a chair. Leather cuffs across her wrists, ankles, chest. A metal plate pressed against the back of her skull. Electrodes lined her temples. Her mouth was dry. Eyes swollen. In front of her, a screen. On it, looping, grainy black and white footage, home video style. A child screaming in a bathtub. Her voice hoarse. Her skin peeling red from scalding water. Julia tried to look away. She couldn't. A calm, male voice spoke from an intercom above. Test subject 47A has re-entered phase 3. Memory bleed is active. Recovery within the expected parameters. Her heart pounded. She knew that voice. It was Dr. Lebrun, the same psychiatrist she'd seen after the school lockdown. The one who touched her shoulder a little too often. Who asked questions she didn't understand. Who smiled too easily when she cried. On the screen, the scene shifted. Now it showed Julia, older, in a hospital hallway, clutching a bouquet. Standing outside a door. She opened it, stepped inside. A child in the hospital bed. Burned. Bandaged. Breathing through a tube. Your daughter, the voice said. No, Julia whispered. You were holding the hairdryer when it fell in. The screen flickered. Now a courtroom. A woman sobbing in the witness stand. Voluntary manslaughter. Psychological evaluation recommended. No. Subject 47A requested total memory eradication. Conditional implant of a substitute life narrative. Reintroduction after 2 years. Deemed unfit after 11 months. Memory collapse expected. Julia screamed against the restraints. The door behind her hissed open. Footsteps. Heavy. Measured. The man in the charcoal suit walked in. But this time, he had a name tag. Operative 01, Facilitator. He walked to the console. Flipped the switch. The restraints snapped open. Julia collapsed forward, catching herself on trembling hands. What is this? She gasped. The man knelt beside her, face unreadable. This is what you bought, he said. What you demanded. A clean slate. Freedom from guilt. A lie, built perfectly. A world without pain. But none of it was real? Real enough to trap you. Real enough to feel. She looked at her hands. They were shaking. She looked at the screen. The courtroom. The hospital. Her daughter. How could I forget my own child? You didn't forget her, he said. You erased her. The hum returned, louder now. Everywhere. Alarms began to pulse red along the walls. Containment breach, the intercom said. 47A is aware. The man stood. You were never meant to come this far back. Julia rose too, staggering. I need to see her, she said. My daughter. I need. You can't. She died 5 years ago. The world spun. She dropped to her knees, breath shallow, sobs choking her throat. But you still want to know the whole truth, the man said. She looked up, hollow. Yes. He nodded. Then opened one final door. Inside was a room with mirrors on all sides. In the center, a single chair. Her voice echoed from within. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. And behind her reflection, a shadow moved. The mirrored room was ice cold. Julia stepped inside, barefoot, blood-dried along the cuts in her palms. The mirrors towered over her like judges. Each reflection was slightly off, too slow, too sharp, too aware. They moved like they were waiting for her to understand. In the center sat the chair. That same awful chair. Metal. Unforgiving. She sat. The man in the charcoal suit didn't follow. The door sealed shut behind her with a hiss. Then, silence. Until the mirrors began to ripple. Not visually, not water, but inside. They flickered with fragments, overlapping images, a child laughing on a beach. Julia, painting in a studio. A man's face, unfamiliar, kissing her on the forehead. None of it matched. None of it was hers. These weren't memories. They were installs. Life modules. Implanted narratives. Synthetic guilt avoidance loops. The voices began. All hers. Layered, like echoes stacked wrong. You wanted to forget. She drowned. You watched her slip under. No, I saved her. You ran. She screamed for you. You told them it was an accident. She begged you not to let go. She dropped to the floor, clutching her head. Each voice clawed its way inside, peeling back layers of stories she hadn't even known were false. The art teacher, the students, the apartment, her mother in Waynesville. None of it existed. The truth surged in like a dam bursting. Her name wasn't Julia Sinclair. She was admitted under the alias 47A after a psychotic break following her daughter's death. The incident, the bathtub, the burns, the accusations had shattered her. She begged for absolution the way a drowning person begs for air. A biotech program, the Quiet Room Initiative, offered her a deal. Complete memory redaction. A manufactured life. Total reprogramming through immersive neuromodulation. She agreed. And she ran. Until now. The lights in the mirror room began to dim, one by one. And in the final darkened pane, a figure stood behind her. Her daughter. Not burned. Not broken. Just waiting. Julia turned. Tears poured down her face as she stared at the child. She was 7. Hair in pigtails. Mommy, she said. You told them to take me away. Julia dropped to her knees. I didn't mean to. You told them I wasn't real. I was scared. You left me in the water. The lights flickered. She was alone again. No child. No voices. Just her and the chair. And her own reflection. Finally whole. Finally honest. Her face not young, not fresh, but hers. Aged by truth. Weathered by consequence. The voice in the ceiling returned. Subject 47A. Integration complete. No further memory obstructions. Exit authorized. A door opened behind her. Flooded with light. She stepped toward it. Not to forget. Not to erase. But to remember. Because the worst prison isn't the padded room. It's the lie you choose to live in. She walked into the light. And the door closed.